Hello everyone and welcome again to the next lesson of the CSS series, and in this particular lesson we want to look at the CSS margin property. And what is CSS margin? The margin property is what is used to create the space around the element, and there are 5 margin properties. One is the margin, and the margin is used to set the space on all the sides of the element. The margin top will add the space on the top side of the element. The margin bottom will add the space around the element at the bottom side. The margin left and the margin right will add the space on the left and on the right respectively. So with that theory said, let's take a practical example to see how we can add a CSS margin around the elements. And now let's get started and turn over to our Visual Studio Code. And in this Visual Studio Code, I'm going to go over to my about page.html. And in this about page.html, we have these two paragraphs, paragraph 1 with an ID, paragraph 1, and the second paragraph with an ID, paragraph 2. And now let me add the border. So I'm going to select that ID, paragraph 1, and then I'm going to add the border, and here I'm going to give it the width of 1 pixels, and it's going to be of the type solid, and it is going to be of the color black. Now my first paragraph 1 has this border, and let me copy these styles and also applies it to paragraph 2. Now I'm going to change the ID from paragraph 1 to paragraph 2. Now when I save these changes, these styles are going to be applied to paragraph 1 and paragraph 2 respectively. And now when you go over to your web browser, you're going to see that now you have these two paragraphs with the border around it. Now let's demonstrate what is a margin. So we said a margin is a space around the element. So you can see by default, without dividing any margin, the browser will add some space on the right here, and also some space on the top, and some space at the bottom, and also some space on the left. But now let's change these default spaces and define our own margins. So I'm going to go over to my CSS file, and now I'm going to apply the margin to the second paragraph. And now how do I specify margin? I'm going to use the margin property, and I'm going to say the margin property should be 32 pixels. So I'm saying the space should be 32 pixels around this element. Now when I come back to my browser, you're going to see that the space has been increased here, also on the top and at the bottom, and also on the right. So when you use the margin property alone without specifying the direction, the position, then the margin 32 will be applied all the 4 sides. So a space of 32 pixels will be added on all the 4 sides. But now let me just specify the margin top and say margin top 32 pixels. And now since it is only top, then the space will be applied on the top here. If I increase from 32 to, let's say, 64, then you're going to see even more space has been added on the top. And now let me also specify the margin left 64, and you're going to see that the margin on the left has been increased. And now you can as well change the margin to right. Now when you save, you're going to see the space has been added on this right hand side. Then you can also specify the margin bottom, and instead of right now you change it to margin bottom, and now you're going to save, and you're going to see that the space has been added between this element and this header. Alright, so with that said, I'm able to explain the concept of the CSS margin property. So put it in a simple way, CSS margin property is the space that you can add around the elements. So with that said, I want to pause this lesson here, and then in our next lesson we will be able to look at the concept of the CSS padding. Otherwise, thank you for joining this lesson and see you in the next content.